Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors
and weight management and metabolic health experts.
and this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Welcome back to part 2 of this energising convo with the fabulous Dr. G. If part 1 got you thinking, part 2 will get you doing. Today, we're diving into the magic of mindset, one of my favourite topics, how your thoughts, feelings and actions shape your happiness and how to hack that loop for good. We wrapped up part 1 chatting about our modern day tech addictions and the constant pull of our devices. In part 2, Dr. G picks up the thread with a story from a simpler time on a volunteering trip to Vietnam where connection looked a little different and rest came without screens.
Quite a few years ago, we did this volunteering trip in Vietnam with my friend and I. And it was awesome. Like, we built this house through Habitat of Humanity. They had local builders come and they helped us, taught us like how to lay bricks and stuff. And then in the afternoon, we all had a nap. Like, there's this like old temple there. So we all had a nap. Then we went back and like, it's so much more relaxed. They're just lying in their hammocks. Sometimes they might go and fish. It's really relaxed, slow pace. But that's not our benchmark here, right? It's completely different. It's scheduled, it's calendared. Everything is just so regimented.
And then, unfortunately, in the downtime where we could be just, doing a quick meditation snack, we'll do a quick scroll instead. It's hard. I'm completely addicted to my device. I've got this love-hate relationship with it. I would love to not use it ever. And I'd have, go through, like lots of people, the whole 180. I'm never doing this, and I feel like throwing it away. And then I go, oh, my phone, what am I going to do? So quickly, order some shopping to come delivered via Woolies by some other person. And they have so many benefits for improving convenience, but they come with a whole heap of baggage.
It doesn't seem to be slowing down, Lucy. It does not seem to be slowing down. I was driving this morning and I saw, let me see, my mind's eye, 1, 2, 3, 5 high school students all existing next to each other, but on their phones. And I think I was born in the wrong time. I wish, sometimes I think, but at the same time, like, it's pretty cool. Like, we connected because of technology, right? We first connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's like everything. There's pros and cons, isn't it? I think, again, in metaphor for life, it's never about nothing. Like, it's not an all or nothing. It's always, there's a Goldilocks bit. And this honestly does go for everything. Everything there is just the right amount. And the problem is that most of us spend a bit of time over here in the probably too much amount. If we can just dial it back a bit, we'll get to this just the right amount bit. And I use an analogy for a lot of, particularly around food for me. So food for me used to be, Dietland. I was either perfectly on a diet, eating lettuce and carrots, or I was on a bender eating donuts and chocolate and everything else I could fit in before I went back on a diet. So I describe it as like careering down the road of life. I was either perfect or on a bender. And now I'm in the middle and I use a bit of lane assist so that if I start to veer off, I can just pull it back a bit. And so there's not these huge things. But again, it's still working on that mindset around, I've sorted it around food, but it's still around things like devices. Like, my brain still wants to go, oh, throw it off the cliff. You never want to use it again. Lane assist is something that you can add to any part of your regime. And I'm sure, I don't know, again, exercise, I've probably never been one to over-exercise. That's always been my thing. Come on, out you go. But I do know there are some people that, do over-exercise and then they get tired and then they injure themselves and so then they do nothing.
You've talked about the middle way a few times. That seems important to you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that certainly what I see happening, particularly, say, on social media, and not even that mainstream media, but is the the idea of tribalism and getting people into your view or your ideology or your way, and it's kind of your way is the only way. And therefore, if that's the belief, then every other way must be wrong. And I really don't like that, because I think what it does is that it excludes people. And again, you look at things like I'm pretty, as I'm sure you are, pretty anti-processed food, but I used to eat a lot of it. I drank a lot of Diet Coke for a long, long time. I ate quite a lot of donuts because, you know, if you eat a donut, you can, if you have Coke, you've got Diet Coke, you've got room for a donut. There was lots of processed food stuff going on. Now I don't hardly eat any processed food, but I also recognize that there are still people that do. And I think what happens is people, if they feel like they're being judged for not being perfect, then they do nothing, because what's the point? And it's not that I believe in everything in moderation, because I also think that's a rubbish sentence. Like, what does that even mean? Everything in moderation? Well, not everything in moderation, because that's actually not true. That's why, you know, we don't, in pregnancy, drink alcohol in moderation. Like, we don't smoke in moderation. There's lots of things that aren't actually, we shouldn't do moderation of. But I think what we do is think broadly about why people do the things they do, not what they're doing, but why they're doing it. Because at the end of the day, even if you're doing things that don't serve you well, like staying up at night watching telly till 3 a.m., there's always some part of you that is getting some benefit out of that. And I think that lots of people, lots of, you know, polarizing influencers have no understanding of that at all, and just go, well, you know, it's not working for you because you're not doing it my way, so that's your fault.
I think having a framework to navigate the digital environment is not only useful, I think if you're going to be in this digital environment, you have to have, like, before you log in, there needs to be some sort of, I guess, boundaries set, at least internal boundaries. I think one thing for me these days is I was consuming so much content, and all of it was great, like a lot of entrepreneurship stuff, but then it can become a lot of noise. We have a lot of noise, and for me, at least as someone who does contribute to this digital environment and is often in conflict as a result, one thing that's been useful for me is, number one, as someone who creates stuff, to create before I consume. And the second thing is to have an intention as to why I'm going into this digital environment to consume. You know, am I looking for inspiration? Am I looking for information? Am I just bored? You know, whatever it is, but as long as there's some intentionality to it, that's been incredibly helpful for me, because it primes the mind. When my mind is primed to look for a certain thing, it's much easier to filter out the noise, because I'm looking for something. I know what I'm looking for. I'm much more intentional. Not all the time, but it's been a much healthier practice for me. So I've been so obsessed with this priming thing. So I had my nieces and nephews in the car, and they were like, let's play find the orange car. Whoever finds the orange car wins. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Because in my mind, I was like, who drives orange cars? Do you drive an orange car?
I did.
Apologies if that's the case.
No, I did in uni. In uni, I had...
Oh, there you go. In my mind, I was like, who drives orange cars?
Yeah.
And then before we hit the first intersection, we had seen 3. Because our mind was primed to it. And then one of my nieces was like, oh, let's try pink. I was like, we're not going to see a pink car. And that day we didn't. But a few weeks later, we saw a pink car. And then yesterday, we saw this bright pink cement truck.
Yes.
The point is, we saw it because we were looking for it. So the value of priming your mind before you go into these, or any environment really, has been incredibly valuable for me. And I think it's much healthier.
Yes, I totally agree. And I love that. And I think you're right. You need to be conscious of the of that reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain that does look for what you're looking for. Notice what you're looking for from that conscious mind. And it's really interesting because if we're not aware of that, that's how we sort of can sabotage our efforts too, where you start thinking everything's hard. And again, we help a lot of people manage their weight, and, weight loss is hard, but the story is that it's really hard. Like, people talk about their battle with their weight. They struggle with obesity. Like, it's the war. And so you go in and you've already decided it's going to be hard. And so therefore it often is hard. If we say to people weight loss is easy, well, of course, that's actually too far the other way. Like, they go, what? Well, it's not easy. Like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I get it, but it's about making it easier. What can I do to make it easy? Because who wants to do hard?
Yeah. Reframing it.
Yeah, which is one of the things that you do in your book, coming back to your book.
Yeah, I mean, I am so interested in thoughts and beliefs and how they just sort of, that priming happens automatically. Like, it's happening all the time. And I think bringing some awareness to it and bringing some intentionality to it can only be valuable. For example, even with a health, I'll give you a silly example. So I used to do jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because although I love health, I also love to apparently see people fight in a cage and hurt themselves. So, but I was doing jiu-jitsu and I was in a headlock, looked up, and something immediately went in my neck. I was like, oh, no, this is not good. And 3 to 4 years later, it's still a bit stiff. Still sometimes get a bit of pain, and seen all these physios and done all the work. And then eventually I listened to this podcast by this orthopedic surgeon who was in India, was talking about relieving neck and back pain by going to the gym and building muscle. And it made so much sense to me. But for me, I've always had this belief that I wasn't a gym guy. I never even questioned it. I just wasn't a gym guy. Like, I'll explicitly say I'm the skinny, malnourished Sri Lankan guy. Like, that's me. That's my build. And as a result, I never entertained the gym. And I heard that podcast overnight. Within an instant, I was like, that makes sense. I signed up for the gym. And since then, I've been like just going so regularly, like 4 to 5 times a week. But in my mind, I'm the gym guy now. Like, I love the gym. So just really reflecting and questioning beliefs and wondering whether it's serving us, because beliefs are not fixed. They can be chosen and they can be adopted. So for one of your patients who believes that weight loss is impossible or it's a war, we have to choose better beliefs, because that's going to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I think it's Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
It's so true.
So
true.
There's a tiny little book, a great little book by a guy who's motivational speaker called Chris Helder. And the book is called The Most Useful Belief. And it was really good. It's a great, again, someone gave it to me, but you can read it in about half an hour. In fact, he often jokes, he goes, it's not really a book, it's a pamphlet. But it really challenges the idea that you don't have to believe what you've always believed. And I often talk about, like, when you're little, most Australian kids will believe in Father Christmas or Santa. And when we believe this, there's all this confirming evidence for it. We see, we go to the shops, we see him, now, back in the olden days, you had to write a letter to him and somebody posted it to nowhere. But, these days you can track him on the internet. Like, there's all of this stuff proving that he's true. There's reindeer footprints, there's all of this stuff. And then, over time, obviously, society doesn't want 25-year-olds believing in Santa anymore. So we sort of systemically dismantle the belief. And kids, it can be confronting. Like, they often, their initial thought is, no, it's true. He is real. Like, they don't believe that he couldn't be. So your initial belief, whenever you challenge one of your underlying beliefs, is always, oh no, that can't be right. And if you're looking for confirmation of your belief, you'll probably find it.
You'll absolutely find it.
But if you're wanting to challenge it, you'll also look for contrary evidence that it doesn't have to be true either.
Yep. I love where this conversation is going. So it's been a fairly recent thing where I've actively started digging into all these beliefs that I have, about money, about relationships, about happiness, about health. And boy, have I found a bunch of stuff that's outdated. Like even this belief of what I consider a belief, oh, I'm busy, or I don't have the time to insert dream, that's just a belief. And when you really look into it, like there are better beliefs. There are better beliefs. And one question that I love that I actually got from Dan Martell, who's an entrepreneur in Canada, is you state your belief, you write down whether, like you question, is it true? And you question, what else could I believe? That's more useful, and going through that process. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating because we're on autopilot for most of our lives, And interestingly, what I would add to that is, although this is sort of in the personal development space generally, I find the work I'm doing on myself for this stuff is really helping my patients as well, because we can go through this stuff and, we're sort of on this journey together, if you will, just battling different things. But
yeah, totally. I think when you work on your own beliefs, your own, and the CBT model, which I totally do love, that thought, feeling, action, you realize that the action of yelling, at your kids, or yelling at not that I ever yelled per se at staff at work, but I might have wanted to. And so my brain wanted to, but my frontal lobe said, no, that's not acceptable. But it still didn't take that's what I wanted to do, because I was reactive. And why was I reactive? Because my thoughts were this mishmash of stuff that actually in the end wasn't even really true. So really developing that awareness, isn't it, of your brain and its little circular thought processes, which then give you your feelings, which usually determine your reactions or your outcome, your behaviors.
The whole premise of my book is based around this model, the feel, think, do model. And I spoke to you at the start about not having the vocabulary to describe what was going on. And even as I was building the solution, building that skill of happiness, I still don't quite have the vocabulary to bring it all together. It was all sort of like puzzle pieces, but they weren't all sort of coming together. And then I saw this model and I thought, oh, wow, this actually brings everything together quite well. So the premise is quite simple. What we feel, what we think, and what we do, they're all linked. So what we feel affects what we think and what we do. And the cool thing is what we think affects what we feel and what we do. And what we do affects what we feel and what we think. So they're all linked. However, although they're all linked, they're not created equally. And what distinguishes them is control. So can we control how we feel?
Good question. I think we try to. And
definitely try to.
Yeah. And I think you can probably change how you feel depending on how you think and what you do. But the initial feeling is the feeling.
So, yes, you can influence the feelings through the back door, through the thinking and the action, but you can't just change it. You can't switch it on and off. And if we could, there wouldn't be any problem. Someone who's feeling unhappy, you just feel happy. End of story. No book. Don't worry about my book. Don't read it. There's no book, right? But that's not how it is. You can't control it. Our thoughts. Now, this is a bit more nuanced. So can we control it? to a certain extent, yes, our conscious thinking, we absolutely can. So if I asked you to think of a fluorescent pink giraffe on roller skates, you're probably thinking of that beautiful specimen right now, right? So we can control our thinking to a certain extent. But there is that sort of unconscious thought, which is paradoxical in that if we try to control it, it becomes louder and more intense. And then action, what we do, assuming capacity, we can control that.
Yes.
Right? So although they're all linked, they're not created equally. And this whole concept of doing happy is about control, like taking this happiness game into our own hands, taking full personal ownership. And the way that we do that is by doing happy, which is we focus on action. And I think there's 3 levels of action that I go through in my book, which is physical action, which is the fundamentals of doing happy. So that's all the basics. So, common sense, but not common practice. Exercising, eating well, spending time in nature, spending time with people you love, doing gratitude, all that sort of stuff, the basics, but still super significant. So doing happy in that sense, if you just did that, you'll be probably better, but maybe that's all you need for a lot of people. Because when I see patients and they're feeling unhappy, anxious, depressed, insert whatever the unhappy feeling is, usually they're not doing happy. They're doing that thing. They're doing the anxiety. They're doing the stress.
The doom scrolling.
I didn't want to say it, but yes. And they're also thinking the thing. They're thinking the anxiety as well. So we can take control and ownership of this by focusing on what we can control, right? That's the powerful thing. So this is why I wanted to talk about compasses. So often, because they're all linked, it's really useful to consider, well, what's driving our actions? And for most of us, it's our feelings. And the thing with feelings is they come and go. And generally unpleasant feelings like fear or anxiety, stress, worry, all these sort of unpleasant feelings drive us to do things that are not actually serving us. So when we use our sort of feelings in the moment as a compass for what we should do, we get very haphazard results. It's a risk because you're relying on something that's unpredictable. So I'm a big fan of changing that compass. So we can still use feelings as a compass, but we need to add a little bit of thinking and doing to it. And one of my favorite questions is, well, what would I rather feel? So let's say if I'm feeling anxious and I ask myself, well, what would I rather feel? It might be peace. Then you start questioning, well, what would someone who's at peace think? For some reason, when you ask a question, the brain wants to fill that void. It wants to answer it. It's like a phone that rings. You want to answer it, right? So you get all these answers. Oh, this is what maybe a peaceful person is not actually thinking about anything, which is good, or they're thinking about gratitude, whatever it is. And what would they be doing? Okay, they might be sipping a cup of tea outside on the porch instead of doom scrolling. And then you can just go do the thing.
Yeah. Right.
And you may or may not feel peace, or you may or may not feel better, but you are living a definition. You're starting to live a definition of happiness, and you're starting to take ownership of your mental health in a way that you can control it. So Russ Harris, in his amazing book, The Happiness Trap, once in a while you get a book where you just highlight everything and you're like, well, this is not useful, but it also suggests that this guy has written a very good book. That was one of these books for me. And he defines happiness as living a life that is full, rich, and meaningful. And what I would add to that is happiness is the actions that contribute to a full, rich, and meaningful life. That way you have control over what I consider, I'm biased, but I consider all paths lead to happiness. Why we do anything is eventually to lead us to some sort of happiness. And I do not like leaving it to chance.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, well, what are the actions? So you could use feelings as a compass and then reverse engineer the actions. You can use results, like what are the results I want out of my life, and then reverse engineer the actions. Or you can use your values and reverse engineer your actions. And the beauty of this is you get to have it all. Like in my mind, if that's how you define happiness, because most of the time we define happiness as a feeling, right? Even if you look in the Oxford Dictionary, it's a positive emotional state that's defined by things like joy and peace and satisfaction. But by definition, feelings are fleeting. So if you define happiness as a feeling, then you succumb to happiness being your happiness being fleeting as well. And in my world, that's unacceptable. So I was like, trying to reverse engineer, like, what would it look like to be happy all the time? And for me, this is it. This is it. You focus on what you can control. And there's the 3 levels of action, which is physical action, psychological action, and perspectival action. That was my long way of saying we have to be very careful what we use as our compass to drive our behavior, because our behavior will lead to the results in our life. Usually, even me, having written the book about it, it's easy to just react to what we're feeling in any given moment. But the behaviors it drives may or may not be serving us.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're right. It's absolutely thoughts, feelings, actions, results in one form or another of those combinations or order. And the idea I like of being able to reverse engineer, if you've got a result that you want, what do I need to think or feel or do to get that result? It's interesting. Lots of people, I think, will just focus on the do. I need to do this to get that result, but then they wonder why they're not doing it. It's like, well, that's because you haven't gone that next bit, which is your thoughts and your feelings. That's what's driving your behavior or your doing. So, yeah, knowing that you can actually dip in and out at any time in that model works super well. I love that. It's great.
Yeah. Back at school, we had to read Hatchet. I don't know if you've ever read Hatchet.
No.
So it's I hated all the books at school because they're just kind of boring. Hatchet was okay. It wasn't great, but it's okay. It was about this kid, 15-year-old kid named Brian. He's on a plane to visit his family, and it crashes in the middle of the jungle, and he's the only survivor. And he needs to learn to he gets a hatchet and he learns to spend for himself, essentially. And one of the things he does is to eat, he spear fishes. So he makes his own spear. He goes to the water. He can see the fish right there. He aims his spear and he tries to hit the fish exactly where he sees it. And every time he misses.
Yeah.
Why does he miss?
Because of the refraction error.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, fellow nerd. Yes.
Yes.
So because he's not accounting for the refraction of light. So he realized that when he aims to the right and above, he gets the fish. Happiness is a lot like that. I think people are aiming directly at the fish, the feelings. And if we aim to the right and up, the thoughts and the actions, you might find that you get the thing that you were trying to catch.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. And at the end of the day, I love your way that happiness is not just a feeling. It's it's much more encompassing. I kind of think at the end of the day, everyone just wants to feel better than where they were, whether that's less anxious or less tired or less bloated or less grumpy. You just want to feel better. And I think that your book is a great roadmap for that outcome.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
It has. Dr. G, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Website, Dr. G, DRG at drgihan, drgihan.com. So I write quite regularly. So there's a lot of articles there if you're interested. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So these days I'm writing something every day just because I love writing and I love the challenge of posting something valuable to the world. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please reach out, and maybe with the subject line Lucy, so I know where you're coming from. And if you're a lifestyle medicine practitioner, please do reach out, because I hope it came across in our conversation, but I am a big believer in lifestyle medicine And I also love entrepreneurship. And I think we are at the early stages of a movement that's just going to snowball into something really beautiful. And I believe that once we connect our lifestyle medicine expertise with business skills, basic business skills, particularly things like marketing, I think it's going to be the ultimate rocket fuel for this movement. So if anyone wants help with that, I would love to help you.
Oh, wonderful. And if you're driving, don't stop. You can, when you get to your destination, all of Dr. G's links will be in the show notes, so you can easily look him up and connect with him because he's fabulous.
Thank you, Lucy. You are equally, if not more, fabulous. So thank you so much.
You're very kind and happy. All right, lovely friends, that's it for us. We will talk to you all next week. Have the most spectacular and hopefully awesomely happy week. Bye for now. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.